So it's every time that we talk about fraud, it's always aligned to corruption and what's going on. But how about an association that has certified fraud examiners? You might be wondering what that is. Well, there's actually an association, and this morning I'm joined by Mr. Mwemba, who is a representative of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. And today we'll try to familiarize with what the organization is all about and what it's going to do to the fight against fraud in Zambia. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the Q Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
Well, to begin with, just briefly explain to us what the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners is.
Well, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners is based in Texas, and it comprises of 80,000 members globally. Basically, it offers education on fraud examinations. Those that want to have a professional qualification which proves that they can do this job well, they become certified fraud examiners.
Okay. How effective has the association been internationally before we come to Zambia, which we're about to start?
Well, internationally, the Fraud Association has helped discover a lot of massive frauds globally. I have here, for example, a publication where they show that frauds cost about $3.7 trillion each year. So by looking at what goes on in the industry through these experts, a lot has been saved from companies that have been running their businesses.
We know that Zambia is no exception when it comes to fraud, but what will the association do in the fight against fraud?
Well, initially what we are doing is we are trying to make people aware of what fraud is, and that fraud exists in most organizations. So we're trying to help them understand what is fraud, and then also how they can prevent it, and how they can detect it, as well as how they can mitigate it. We are organizing seminars and workshops for a number of people, including our members, to disseminate this information to a broader group of people. We are also trying to liaise with some of the government departments to see how we can help them in understanding some of the elements of fraud.
Okay. During this week, from the 13th to tomorrow, the 19th, there's been a commemoration of the International Fraud Week. What has been happening during this week?
Well, what we have done this week, we have put a number of articles online for people to read, to see different aspects of fraud. And we have also held a few discussions with individuals on what fraud is. Yesterday we had a press briefing talking about fraud, and we are now trying to go ahead to have a few of these discussions like this one we have, to see if people can listen in and look at what we do and what we are trying to achieve in this country in terms of fraud prevention and fraud detection.
Okay, I appreciate the fact that you've mentioned the different types of fraud. Could you briefly just help us relate as we set the pace for what types of fraud are there?
When you look at fraud, fraud is the bigger picture. A lot of people are quite familiar with the word corruption, but corruption is just one small component of fraud. You have asset misappropriation, which is people taking property from companies and stealing things from companies. And then you've got what we call financial statement fraud, where management may play around with the financial statements in order to make their financial statements look better. So there are three components. You've got corruption, you've got asset misappropriation, and you've got financial statement fraud. Those are all part of the bigger picture of fraud.
Okay. Yesterday you highlighted some very important things, and I would just like us to reiterate them. It is one difficult thing to get to be a whistleblower of fraud, and so in your trainings as the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, how will you look at that area to ensure that there is more that is done to ensure that whistleblowers are there and fraud is brought down to the lock?
Well, as mentioned yesterday, one of our speakers did indicate that there is a law that protects people who whistleblow about fraud in their organizations. In other words, there shouldn't be any reaction against the individual who reports fraud in their operations. We are trying to encourage companies, especially as a part of corporate governance, that they introduce these systems whereby employees are free to report where they see fraud happening in their company. In any case, if fraud continues in those companies, it affects their bottom line. They lose business. So it is only good for the companies if they allow employees to report it.
Okay. Now, there's also an anti-prevention checkup, that is anti-fraud prevention checkup. Just tell us what that is and what it entails.
Well, what it is that the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners has come up with a checkup. What they do is they give something like this to companies, and the companies are able to answer questions. And once those questions have been answered, there is a score. And based on that score, it will indicate at what level fraud is dealt with in that organization. Now that helps the companies plan or to put strategies as to how they will deal with their fraud activities in the organization. For example, they may decide to change certain systems, or they may bring in experts to come and help them out on how to deal with fraud.
Okay, what would you say are some of the reasons why in these organizations people are not coming out to mention if they notice fraud somewhere?
I think part of the problem is fear. A lot of people want to keep their jobs, and so they may see fraud happening and they will not say anything. Also, there's also the question of that some of the frauds are perpetuated by people who are actually trusted in the organization. And some of them may be the seniors, they may be the bosses. So the bosses may override systems, and the individual who's a junior officer may have no outlet for exposing that fraud. And this is why we're encouraging people to have these whistleblower systems, so that they can help people go to this hotline and report fraud anonymously. They don't have to put their names there.
Okay. Now, with the systems that are being put in place with the organization, somebody might be wondering who is eligible to be called a certified fraud examiner. Is it just individuals who walk up to the organization? Do you have to go through a pre-training before you come to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners?
Yes, there are minimum requirements, just like you have got the ACCA, the Association of Zambia, and everybody else, where you apply to study for this profession. And the entry requirements are very rigorous. Once you have gone through that training, you pass the exams, which is quite a detailed exam, which covers investigations, it covers frauds, and once you've done that part and you pass, you are certified. And once you are certified, it means you are capable of doing your job, and you are required throughout the year to do what they call continuous professional education, to see whether there are areas that you need to brush up and to kind of help you continue improving on your understanding and dealings with the frauds.
There are certain people that might misunderstand the role of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Would you care to briefly describe to them that it is not an investigative wing?
It isn't an investigative wing. It is an educational wing. It helps individuals. Say, for example, you have the ACCA. The ACCA has got its own members, and those study for that qualification, but they are not called investigators. Once they start for their courses, they become accountants in organizations, and then they've got roles they play in those organizations. So the same thing with ACFEs. ACFEs are professionals in fraud, but they may be employed in different roles, either as investigators or as auditors or as accountants in different fields.
So people should not expect the ACFE to go on and pursue corruption cases and things.
No, that's not the role of the ACFE.
Okay.
The ACFE is not there to investigate corruption. There are investigative wings already capable of doing that. We also have private companies that can do that. What we are a melting point ourselves, where we bring in these different professionals together who are focusing on fraud and giving them certain qualifications so that they can go out professionally and deal with the fraud, which is different from just any other individual who goes to look at the fraud unprofessionally.
Okay, as we get to finish off, what should we look forward to as from you as the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners from now onward?
We'll look out for more publicity. We'll be having seminars and workshops where we'll be talking about fraud, different types of frauds, how it can be prevented, what the fraud triangle is, and things like that. We are going to try and sensitize people. We'll try to liaise with government and the other institutions, private sector, to see if there are any areas that we can help them with their strategies in preventing fraud in their organizations.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mwemba, for coming through to speak with us this
Thank
morning.
you.
Absolutely. So yesterday, there was a press briefing at the Best Western Plus, and the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners